Welcome to The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast, as voted on by us, the hosts of The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast. It's Monday, the 26th of September, 2022. I'm Nick Richardson, and today I'm joined by Peter Barry Burns.
The suburb in New South Wales. That's where I'm from.
Where you can't get a film crew. And she's the publishing producer at League of Geeks. It's Kelsey Gamble.
G'day, hello. And you can get a film crew where I'm at. So, you know, small victories there.
There you go. There you go. But you can't get a film crew in Ohio. And all of this would make sense if you guys were listening to the conversation we had before we were live.
10 minutes of preamble.
Yeah, if you were listening to that conversation, I would have some questions about our company security. But Kelsey, it is a delight to have you here. Why don't you tell the people watching a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently the publishing producer at League of Geeks, which basically means, once you're making a game, as you're in the process of getting the game built, you got to work out how to get it out into the market and get it in the hands of players. So I'm responsible for all sorts of things for doing that, from the marketing to it, to organizing bits and pieces in the back end, to, yes, finding film crews in Ohio, which is something that I was talking to these guys about earlier. Before that, I had a gig at Bethesda. I was doing communications and community management across Asia, and also Australia, New Zealand, obviously, because, Australian makes sense. Other than that, not much to say.
Well, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
That was plenty.
That was
Down on yourself. That was awesome.
That was almost a resume.
It's Monday morning.
If you told us where you went to school and and for some reason a couple of your hobbies and interests, that is a full-on resume. That I have not applied for a job in fucking, I don't know, like 14 years ago. But when I was applying for jobs, I do remember having a hobbies and interests section as being a very weird thing that I felt like an employer needed to know. Is that still a thing?
How many jobs did you get?
That's a great question. How many jobs did
I
you
haven't seen his
apply
hobbies
for?
and interests. He was never going to get employed.
My hobbies and interests were mainly embezzling, company-related murders.
Light fraud.
Tennis. I got 2 jobs based off resumes. I got my first job at Video Easy, and then I got a job at a temp agency when I first moved to Sydney. And other than that, I've never applied for another job my entire life.
I mean, that's a flex right there.
No, I just knew that I would never get hired, so I was forced to start companies.
Amazing. I mean, like, that's a good way to start a company. It's like, no one's going to hire me. May as well start my own, I guess. That way I can hire myself.
Exactly. Now, you said that part of your job is getting the game into the hands of players. Have you considered just posting the full game on your internal company Slack and just letting the internet take care of the rest?
Maybe you should get a job with me, Nick. That sounds amazing. That's a great idea. Maybe, I don't know why I haven't considered that. I should I should put it on a USB and just go door to door. Like, hey, hello, would you like to play this game?
Yeah.
Okay, done.
You could leave that USB at the Magic Castle. God, game development is fucking weird. Except for Kelsey, who's wonderful. Now, we are going to talk about your game that you're working on and that got announced last week a bit later on in the show. But very quickly, do you want to just tell people what League of Geeks are working on at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So League of Geeks is known for Mellow, if you've played that game. It's been like 10 years since we've announced a game, and I've forgotten what day it is and what time it is. But a few days ago, we announced our new game called Solium Infernum, which is a reimagining of a slightly obscure game that you may have heard of from the year 2009.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm living and breathing that. Also it's called Solium Infernum. So,
Yep.
that
SEO,
nice and easy.
That
Easy
SEO is
to
going to be
track.
bang on. Can I ask very politely, what the fuck have you guys been doing for the last 10 years?
Man, so I just joined. Like, I am super fresh.
So you joined.
What I've been doing.
Not my fault. And suddenly there's a game.
Suddenly there's a game. Suddenly there's something
It's
to
me.
release.
The Kelsey factor.
No, just kidding. That's what you need. No, just kidding. These guys, I think the thing that I like the most about League of Geeks is they have that really high quality bar. And so they will work on something until it's right. They had a bunch of things in the background, but Armello was so successful that they kept bringing out content to that because they wanted it to be like extremely fan service, extremely high quality bar. They only released the last patch like this year, like a few months ago. And so up until that point, people who know Armello and have been playing it have known that that game was serviced and, kept going for so long. And if you went back and played that game now, you would have literally 7 years of content? I'm not very good at maths.
Speaking of maths, I was just wondering, do you know what percentage of the Armello market was furries?
That's a really good question. I would love to take a wild guess. I don't know. I know there's a good percentage.
Yeah. What percentage?
And I wore the ears.
Yeah, what percentage do you think between, say, 99 and 100%? Where within that?
Well, my husband was like a mad Armello fan, and I'm 99% sure he's not a furry. So... Okay.
Yeah,
at least one. I bet there are a bunch of people that aren't.
There are dozens of us. There are dozens of us who aren't furries. Incredible. I love that it really is one of the only things in existence besides potentially the fandom of My Little Pony, where you could say that there is a small subset who are not furry related individuals. That's great. I mean, I'm not a furry and I love Armello, so there you go. But I'm very excited to talk more about your new game coming up. But before we do that, we need to talk about all the game news that happened in the last week that wasn't League of Geeks announcing a video game. So Pete, let's move on with the backup because the news is not going to break itself. The backup is presented by one of our top Stitch patrons and the best evil person we know, whoever coaches the Sydney Swans. I didn't actually watch the game over the weekend, but I heard from a lot of very disappointed people. Just coach your game better. That's I mean, I watch a lot of sport and all the teams that I watch win all the time because they coach really well. Sydney Swans, get a better coach. Sorry, I mean, Evil Spyboy. Evil Spyboy is the worst person we know. Get your exclamation mark Spyboys out in the chat because thanks to his generous Patreon support, Evil Spyboy is bringing you the backup and he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank provides regular breakfast to more than 132,000 students in schools across the country. And on top of this, more than 200,000 kids seek food relief from their charities every single month. Donate at foodbank.org.au. There's a link in Nightbot right now and head to tasteofmultifish.com for more information about Evil Spyboy's proclivities. All right, let's back up and look at the biggest stories of the week as voted on by us, the host of the backup, where we back up and look at the biggest stories of the week. And Kelsey, obviously, the League of Geeks announcement was the biggest story of the week. It's a no-brainer. Of course. That's why we've given it its own fucking segment later on in the show. Besides that, what was the biggest story that happened this week that made you back up and say, hey, that's a pretty big story?
I mean, slightly more obscure than the Solemn Infernum one, but I went with the 17-year-old suspected GTA 6 leaker has been arrested because that sentence alone, there's just so much going on there.
So much to unpack.
So much to unpack. I think that the main thing for me is just the word 17-year-old because, my first thought when I looked at that headline and when I kind of saw it coming out online is, what was I doing when I was 17? Definitely not that. Obviously, it's not great that he's hacked things. Very much not pro that. But you gotta give him props for at least getting out there and
certainly ambitious. That's a driven teenager.
I mean, he could add that as a hobby to his resume, and I'm sure there would be some people that would go,
Yeah, the fact that he wasn't locked in his room jerking off is just an achievement for a 17-year-old. So it's anything other than that, even if it's international crime, is a step up. I like to think, Kelsey,
crime.
When you were 17, you were committing a bunch of crimes, but you weren't getting caught. You were actually
they weren't sweet hacking deals. I definitely was not capable of that. I was capable of updating my MySpace page. That's probably the equivalent of hacking in my brain. Learned how to do HTML that way, but no, to be serious, it's obviously from my perspective, the person who kind of is responsible for big announcers and marketing campaigns for games. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare that happened. I saw it go out. And obviously, whenever leaks happen, it turns my blood cold and it terrifies me in so many ways, because it could have been me that leaked those things, right? Especially when I was at Bethesda and there was really sensitive information, like pre-Starfield announce, pre-Elder Scrolls announces and things like that. Like to be in that company, in that position, and be the person who is a victim of that hacking, nightmare. But also, 17-year-old, good for you, I guess.
What a go-getter!
But yeah, I think that he did Uber as well, right? Like it wasn't just GTA. He kind of cast his net quite wide.
Is suspected of doing Uber as well.
Yeah.
Do we know why?
Yeah, they'd also the group that he was with had also hacked Microsoft, Cisco, Samsung, Nvidia, Okta, Brazil's Ministry of Health. Was another one. So apparently it had been thought by authorities that like they had sort of shut up shop, gone quiet, whatever, but now they're back in force. I think it's interesting, as you said, like you work in the games industry, but aside from the fact that it's very, just the fact that things were stolen is fucking terrible, just no matter what it is. But how, like the games industry is so secretive, I feel like from an outsider's perspective of just like, people don't really understand a lot how games are made. They're made in such a way that it takes so long for a game to become the thing that is actually going to be the thing, that if anyone sees it early, it's just so hard to understand what you're looking at and see the potential and that sort of thing. How do you feel about the idea of having to keep everything so locked down for so long? Do you think that there's any value in showing things earlier to try to help people understand how games are made? Or is that just like such a naive, dumb, stupid thing and that's why I host podcasts and don't make video games?
I don't think it's naive or dumb at all, but I guess the question is who's going to be the first? Like, who's going to be the first company that puts out, like, I remember playing Deathloop's a really great example, right? I remember going in and testing that game when it was in early stages of development. And it was just literally, they talk about grey boxes in game development. It was just boxes. And it wasn't like they hadn't really done anything at that point. And even myself, I've been in the industry for 12 years. I've worked behind the scenes for a really long time. Even I was sitting there being like, what's this going to be?
I don't think we're onto something here, guys.
And that people far smarter than me, the longer I'm in it, especially working with League of Geeks, I kind of understand a lot more now, as when I did when I was on the publishing side. But it takes a lot. Like, it takes a lot of education, and it takes really brave people to be the first people to release those, videos of grey boxes moving around a screen for people to start understanding it. Because the first people that do it, then people aren't going to, like, you see these leaks happen and you see the discourse online of people being like, oh, this game looks garbage. Happened with Redfall as well, where people that got leaked too. And people thought it looked awful, and it's like, no, you guys, like, you need to understand the course of game development is such that things, it's not even that thing like polished happens right at the end. It's just there are different focuses on the game, and normally it's the gameplay loop is the thing that's really important to people. And a lot of the things that you don't necessarily see but you feel are the things that you focus on.
No, true.
But yeah, like it's hard. The thing that I really enjoyed, and the small silver lining of the whole thing, is I did see a lot of game devs, particularly indie game devs, going out and being like, hey, this is what my game looked like when it first was in the first stages of being made. And it looked like hot garbage. Look at it now. It's great. I think that's probably where we start. That's what I would like to see, is more games being like, here, take a look from our archives of stuff that we were developing 8 years ago on this game that actually did super well. That way there's no risk necessarily, because that's the risk you take, right, as a game publisher, is putting out a video of your game that people are like, well, that doesn't look good. And then all of a sudden you've lost a bunch of potential sales and a potential people that could play the game otherwise.
Yeah. So. And can developers really win in this scenario?
No.
I fucking hate on it anyway. I hear your point about after the fact showing what it looked like at various stages of development, because then people have a reference point as to what it becomes, as opposed to I have no idea what this is going to become. And
Yeah.
the risk of, and it's really like it's a editorial risk, really, of showing an early game that may have a feature in it that you decide 6 months later shouldn't be in the game and have to take out, and suddenly, you know, and Gus does this all the time. He watches a movie trailer and he's like, that shot from the trailer wasn't in it. This sucks. And it's like, what the fuck? Who cares?
The amount
the final product is different from the teaser for the final product.
100%.
So, and that would
100%.
happen so frequently with video games.
The amount that gets cut at the end of the game, and the amount of features that when you're going, okay, we're going to have this game and it's going to look like this, it's going to have all these features, it's going to do all these things. I would, if somebody has worked on a game that has shipped every feature that they, you know, said that they were going to do, thought that they were going to do, created in their documentation was going to be the thing, I would like to meet that person, because they are a genius, and whatever it is they've done, you know, I want to know that secret sauce, because it's just not feasible the way that game dev happens. You got to cut things.
So isn't that game Star Citizen, which has never come out? Like, that's totally. They're just like, we're just gonna keep taking money and put everything in there. It's like, this sucks.
Yeah, but when that game comes out, it's gonna be perfect.
It's gonna
rule.
rule.
Like 20, 30 years, it's gonna be so fucking good.
I think you're so right about the things of that, like, to test. And again, I'm speaking from such a place of I don't know anything, but I know how much I don't know. To test the way that the physics in a walk animation work, you have to make a character in an environment that you could walk around and do all the things that you would be doing in a video game. So it's like, there's no way to test this shit without building something. And why waste all this time building something that looks incredible every time, or that has all the features that you've already got in it, when it's like, this was literally to just test walking. Like, it's the only purpose of this thing is to do these very specific things. Why ever do anything else?
Totally.
But I did love seeing that. I retweeted that thread of all the developers coming out and showing off their games. And even I guess, like you, Kelsey, where you're like, I've played some early stuff where you're like, this ain't it. Even I would struggle to look at that Sea of Thieves footage that they put out and go, oh yeah, Rare are really firing on all cylinders. And then you look at what that game became, not only just visually, which is phenomenal, but just from the gameplay, just from the way that game works, so much fun. But that initial thing where you see Phil Spencer and a couple of other people playing the game, and you're just like, fuck, like, thank God Phil has more foresight than I do, because I would have just been pulling computers out of walls.
You're done. Get out. Go to Video Easy. That's it.
Make another fucking nuts and bolts game. Your reach exceeded your grasp.
Well, like, the amount of games that like come together right at the end as well. That was the thing that I you know, not to plug too hard. Genuine statement, not just me polishing up League of Geeks, but I came in right at the point that they had a demo for media for the announce, and they're showing it to me, and they're like, oh, we've got all these feelings, so you got this isn't right, you know, as you do when you're pulling together a pre-alpha stage demo of a game. It's cobbled together. You're trying to show the best of a thing that is barely built, kind of thing. And I remember them showing me this, and I was like, the amount of horrific pre-alpha demos I've seen that are just like, you do this one thing and only this one thing. Don't click anywhere else on the screen, or the entire thing will break. It was amazing. Like, they've made this thing, and I was like, how did you do this? Like, this is really early, and you've managed to make something that doesn't crash within 3 seconds if you press a button 3 times the wrong way. Like, incredible. But yeah, like, normally everything is held together with duct tape till like right before something goes out.
Which was the funny thing about the GTA stuff, because it's like, these guys have done pretty much exclusively this for the last 30 years, guys. Like, and there are assets in here from GTA 5. Like, you're looking at, it's so obvious what you're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, and it all like looked like it was going to become a thing.
Looks like GTA.
It wasn't like, oh, we didn't have a cashier register, so we put a banana object there because it was just sitting. We just had like 3D assets. We're just throwing in everywhere. Like it looked like, okay, this is a version, a very early version of the exact thing you're going to get.
Yeah.
But just extrapolate the detail like in your head, but people can't do that.
So to close this off, surely the only way, because like the response has been overwhelmingly on the side of Rockstar and developers as a whole, of just going like, this sucks. This is why we can't have nice things. This is why the internet was a terrible idea. 17-year-old arrested. So obviously that's great. But I feel like the response has been they really went hard, found the people responsible allegedly, and are going to prosecute them as harshly as they can. But there's now 100% the game is going to be delayed just a slightly bit longer because they definitely are going to now include this as a mission in their game. Like, there is definitely going to be a version of this, but it ends where you play, like you play as this kid.
You're just hacking.
Like, it's the only part of the game where you don't play as the main characters. You just play as this character who hacks, breaks in, steals things, and then Rockstar employees just come over one by one and shoot you. And it's like, that's just like, this is 5-minute part of the game where it's like, this 17-year-old hacker dies in this game horribly over and over and over again, and it's like that's the cathartic mission that they're just going to get out.
Oh my god, that's grim, but I can see it happening, which is potentially even more grim. I don't know.
Well, we're gonna. I mean, Rockstar, I think, are now just going to be buttoning up and trying to continue with the business of making the game. We probably won't be hearing about Grand Theft Auto 6 for a while now, and so but hopefully we do get an update on what happens with this hacker, and that hopefully that deters more people from trying to do this sort of thing in the future. Peter, what story was a big one for you, my friend?
Well, the Nvidia conference happened, and they announced their 40 series bricks. I don't know if you guys saw the size of them. They're like minimum 3.5 slot cards. They're absurd, 6-inch thick, ludicrous. You need new cases for these fucking things. They're absurd. But there's some, like, there's some positive points about them. There's some negative points about them.
They're chunky boys.
They're chunky boys. Nvidia love painting themselves as villains right now. They just seem to be obsessed with it. They're like, I don't know, there's something evil about Nvidia right now. But the cards are still sick. And they did have a couple of really, really cool kind of side announcements. I don't want to talk about GPUs, but I want to talk about the RTX Remix tool that they've developed alongside the 4000 series cards. This is a tool that's designed to help modders pull kind of DX8, DX9 older games into a modernized kind of performance setting with ray tracing, with all this stuff. They demoed it with Morrowind, which is a favorite of mine.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. So before Skyrim,
you only played it when it was just a series of grey boxes.
It's true.
That's the game.
It's true.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
Yeah.
But if you maybe you could just use this RTX Remix on the GTA 6 build, and you'd have GTA 6 releasable. But what this does is it kind of incompatible games. You basically capture the scene from the perspective of like you become the character in the setting. You capture the scene and it gathers all of the texture data, all the object data, and then it allows you to reinterpret that data and apply RTX AI basically to it to insert ray tracing, upscale textures, and allows you to see in kind of detailed in the space what objects are kind of like too old to really, you're going to have to replace. Some are okay. And it like,
that's Morrowind.
This is Morrowind, and it doesn't mean that there's no time investment at all, but the difference between like modders going in
from scratch
and remaking everything from scratch, remaking textures from scratch, to this is like, it's a much, much faster process to modernize classic games that people are, I mean, and look at the AI detailing of that texture on the wall is just like, yeah, it looks like this now. It's really quite impressive for essentially like
nuts.
a plug-in mod tool. So
this is the stuff that because normally I am terrified of how technology is changing us as people, but this is the sort of stuff where I go, I love this because what it's actually doing is it's doing so much of the heavy lifting that is just sort of like, it's not like you would feel particularly inspired to be like, okay, I'm going to just take this thing and now repaint this mural or this texture on a wall. You can now change it now that it's been up-resed or whatever. You can continue to tweak and add and whatever. But it's like, it's just doing that initial huge amount of boring grunt work. This is so wild. God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see a bunch of kind of like mid-noughties games being kind of revived on Steam and on all sorts of places. And along with this announcement where they kind of demoed it and talked through the process of how it works, and I'm not going to get into the detail of that because I don't understand it, and people who do want to understand it will go and do it for themselves. They revealed that there is an official partnership with Steam for this in a Portal RTX remake.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So the original Portal, along with Valve, is being released, and it's a free update to Portal. Basically just Nvidia flexing, going, we did it, come play with it. It's insane. Obviously there's some points in the trailer where it's like, and Portal is like a really simplistic looking game and still holds up in its just like really clean cut design. But and I was like, does it really need a lift? And then as soon as you see effects on those portals and on the lights and on the companion cube and stuff, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, look at that. Look at the light. Oh my God. And any excuse to replay Portal. Come on.
Yeah.
So yes, Nvidia had new cards, but it's really like these kind of software tool advancements that I think are more interesting to the general public than you get more grunt out of your GPU. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of this.
Is this only for the 40 series?
So it is, I think you need the 40 series as a developer to use the tool, but it will run on anything that supports Vulkan ray tracing.
Okay, cool.
So it's
awesome.
You need the tool to build it, but then it will play out with any video card that is up to the task.
Ray tracing.
So what are you guys going to look to play in that case? What's the thing on your list other than obviously Portal?
Like what would we want upgraded?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. You would take Morrowind.
I would take Morrowind. I think to me that was like that's fucking hype. Because I love Morrowind so much, and part of what's hard to go back and play about it is the it's less the graphics and more the like the dice roll combat of like, I have 30 attacks, so that means I hit 3 out of 10 swings, even though they all play out which is like,
yeah, that was really good.
That was great.
I mean, I played a lot of Morrowind, but I think it would be much more palatable if it was like I'm discovering the game again anew based on how like beautiful the lighting and stuff of it is now.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
I like that. I don't know what I would want to, because it has to be PC, right? Like it's.
Yeah, I guess it would. Yeah.
Yeah, like because I'm kind of like, just do this to every PlayStation 1 game, but that's not really what we're talking about. Yeah. Do you have something, Kelsey?
Mine is so ridiculous, and I don't think anybody would ever agree with me. But I played a game called Croc: Legend of the Gobbos, and I loved that game so much. And I just want to be able to play it again, and I want to introduce my kid to it. Because I feel like my kid's just entering the demographic where it would actually work, but the graphics are a real Like looking at them now, I looked at a video of it because I was showing it to someone who had never heard of it, and they didn't believe that Croc Legend of the Gobbos was a real game because of the name. It's pretty intense. But yeah, no, I watched the video and I was like, oof. These did not hold up, these graphics. So yeah, if they gave it this treatment, I would be a happy gal, I reckon.
So 100%. Croc Legends of the Gobbos was updated to be DirectX compatible and should therefore work with this.
That's music to my ears.
There should be a build of Croc Legend of the Gobbos out there.
I'm going to save the Gobbos again. It's going to happen.
But imagine it applied to The Witcher 2 and someone said,
all good answers. Those games aren't the Croc Legend of the Gobbos, though, is all I'm going to say.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
No, that's true. That's fair. Cool. Well, I'm excited to see what comes from that. That is super cool. It's very annoying that there are more graphics cards. I'm not going to lie. That's a frustrating, dumb business model, but we all have just come to terms with it. We need to move on with our lives. The other thing that people are moving on from is Twitch. What a segue. My story this week was Twitch coming out saying that they are changing the way that they are going to be doing their revenue payouts to creators. So traditionally, splits payout with most creators has been 50-50 split. For some creators, they offered a 70-30 split because they're like, hey, you're making you're bringing a lot of viewers into this platform. You're quite successful. We're going to give you a more lucrative split on your side as a way of saying like, thank you and encouraging your further development. They have since come out and said that they are going to stop offering this as something going forward to new creators and that they're going to stick with the 50-50 split, which for most people, this doesn't affect. For most streamers, this doesn't affect at all. Most streamers do not, and when I say most, I mean really most streamers don't have the 70-30 split. The more negative thing that this implies is that Twitch are reaching that point of a life cycle of a tech company where they're like, we spend a lot of time burning a lot of money and we feel like we don't want to be burning as much money as we have been in the past. They came out like quite openly about how much it costs to run Twitch streams from their side, from the technical side of just purely us, like people now. We've got 480 people sitting here watching us. We are costing Twitch money, particularly because the way that we monetize our show is mainly through Patreon. So it's off platform. We don't ask really you guys to give subs or anything. So we're costing Twitch a fortune just hosting this show right now.
Suck eggs.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for Amazon. Go fuck yourself. But the more negative thing that sort of comes along with this that I've seen a lot of feedback from streamers and community members and everyone really is that it feels like what they're doing is punishing creators for using their platform. Saying that you are not being successful enough on this platform for us to want to make a better incentive for you. And they are, instead of providing tools that help creators make content that works better for Twitch's business model and their platform, they're just going, okay, we're going to not offer you more money and we're going to start implementing more ads, which was the other part of this, of like they've been experimenting with running more commercials like that you can activate throughout stream and that sort of thing. And really it's like you launched a platform that was so not about interrupting with ad breaks and was about being supported by your community. For this pivot to happen, it's really like, I mean, Netflix are kind of talking about it right now about adding a commercial tier to their service, but we're so used to being able to watch things and not have to be constantly interrupted with commercials and being sold things, that to add it after we got used to that is a very strange move. And there's been a lot of talk about people genuinely wanting to move over to YouTube, who offer a 70-30 split to just everyone, full stop, doesn't matter. Like Code Miko, who is a huge streamer on Twitch, was talking about how she was like, it just feels like you're not giving us the information that we need to make better, more successful content on your platforms. You're just saying there's no way we can fix this. So actually now the only way that this is going to work is we're going to run a bunch more ads in your streams. You're not going to get as much money or have the potential to get as much money. And they're not saying this, but it does feel a little like this is all your fault and we're paying for you to do all this. And now we need to tighten the ship a little bit. And it's like, well, the ship is only loose because you loosened the ship. It's a loose ship.
Why is it loose? What's this analogy?
Loose lips sink ships. I don't know. The tightened up. I'm combining a lot of metaphors here, Kelsey. I'm feeling very emotional right now.
It's okay. I understand.
Yeah. So for me, my first reaction was just like, oh, when particularly for a platform where the only way that this platform works is if hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are on this platform, either streaming or watching live in a moment, watching that people are in front of the screen at that moment doing it, is the only way that Twitch works. For this sort of thing where it's like coming out saying, actually, all the effort that you're already putting in is probably not enough at the moment. Maybe you should just consider making a 15-minute YouTube video that has some pretty targeted hashtags, because YouTube is going to feed that video, actively push that video in front of people, and Twitch is just going to be like, oh, you're interested in watching Final Fantasy live streams? Click on the Final Fantasy thing. Here's 300 people. I don't know, just start clicking around and figure out who you like. Kelsey, from your perspective, as someone who works in video games, I'm sure that you see a lot of benefits to Twitch. How do you think that this news has been going down, and how does it feel for you from the other side of the fence, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, it's really rough. And, ultimately it's the roughest for the content creators who are on Twitch, right? Like, I don't think that I would ever, say, oh, I've got it harder here. I obviously have worked with content creators as part of my role for a really long time. A bunch of them are my really good mates. I see the impact that it's having on people's livelihoods, let's be honest. From my perspective, though, it's slightly different, and it's just as difficult in a lot of ways. As an indie studio, we have a very small amount of marketing budget that we have in comparison to like the DoorDashers and the giant companies of the world. And the minimum spend on Twitch, if you want to be an advertiser that runs these ads, is insane. It's not tenable. You just can't do it unless you're a huge company. And even then, you've got to be really careful about it. I wonder whether, their model of making it, really gated to this high threshold is actually hurting them more than it's helping. Because, we just announced our game, and during the course of that, I was looking into the pricing and how to kind of get the word out there about the game. And it just wasn't feasible for me to use Twitch. So I've got YouTube ads running, and I'm spending money as a game company and as a publisher. We're spending money with YouTube. I wonder whether that was an intentional decision. I'm sure that there's people behind the scenes on Twitch's end that are very smart making these calls to work out how to maximize the revenue that they get. But I wonder whether opening it up so that more smaller guys can buy in and give them money would help them, because it would also help Twitch. I know a lot of you guys are sick of seeing the same ad over and over again. There's a reason for that. Like there's a huge reason for that. I'd love to have some Solium Infernum ads running, but don't have the crazy cash to splash them yet. So I think it's hard. I think, it's always good when you have a large pool from which to play in. I never like monopolies. Like, I don't want to see Twitch not do well. Like, I do want to see it do well. I want to see YouTube do well as well. Like, ideally, I'd like to see, other categories of platforms that aren't so exploitative in all the ways that we all, talk about a lot and already know. But, I think a monopoly would be the worst thing in the world. So I don't necessarily know whether everyone jumping ship, the loose ship, and moving to YouTube is the answer.
I heard the derision in your voice.
But yeah, like it's a hard one. Like, I don't think that there's an easy answer. And I don't have a huge amount of sympathy for the giant company Amazon, but I'm sure that they've got a lot of numbers flying over their head right now trying to work out how to make things work. But I think the last thing that I would say about it from my perspective is you always start to lose when you stop looking and listening at your community. When it seems like people don't, if they're shouting from the rooftops about how they're feeling about a certain thing and they're not getting anything out of it, they feel like they're not being heard. I think it's only a matter of time before things will get worse for you as a company. So yeah, not looking good at the moment. I hope they change tack real quick.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, part of the problem is, yeah, you're right about monopoly. Although it feels like Twitch is a monopoly at the moment. As soon as Mixer disappeared, YouTube has never really been viable competition from a streaming perspective. Because
in Asia, it's huge.
Totally, and I think a lot of that is just because of the way that people in the West have set up their YouTube accounts. It's not really. It's personal. It's attached to a Gmail account that you get personal. Your mum emails you, and you don't want to be talking shit on the internet without this. Like, Twitch came along at a time where people were building up effectively avatars. They were building up these online personas. Everyone had a gamer tag. Like, I didn't have a gamer tag when I was a kid. I didn't have a gamer tag when I got a Gmail account. And, I use Pierreth on everything now, but it's like I don't really identify as that. People identify as Loki Cat in our chat doesn't have a real name anymore.
No, he
legally changed to Loki Cat. What does it mean? No one fucking knows. But doesn't want to be commenting on random live streams as their personal, as themselves.
And yet he is, because his name is legally Loki Cat.
So it's it's this. There's definitely barriers to entry for YouTube, but I think the worse that Twitch treats its consumer base, the more forgiving of YouTube's shortcomings people are getting.
100%.
Yeah.
They're willing to make those sacrifices to up yours to Twitch. And we've had conversations about it, Nick, and our primary streaming platform is Twitch.
Totally.
And we're not committed to Twitch for any length of time. So
it's because the other two things. One, it is so damaging when you base your whole business model is based on the idea of building community and friendship and closeness and understanding. For the biggest company in the world, it is weird that Amazon. I mean, I guess Amazon bought Twitch, so that was the initial thing. But it's it is a platform built around the idea of making personal connection with other people. And so when you build on that, and then you pivot to you're all kind of not making enough money for us, which is the subtext of what is being said, then you just go, right. So it's not about personal, which of course we knew because everything is about business. But as soon as the illusion of that sort of falls away, then like you said, everyone else starts looking really good. And then the other thing is that I think that Twitch are in a weak position in terms of they are competing, they're competing against YouTube, but they are really competing against TikTok as well. I mean, everyone is competing against TikTok in some way. And not to say that YouTubers work incredibly hard. TikTokers work incredibly hard. There is a level of time investment that you just need to put into Twitch to be successful that is so astronomical. And really, it's to be successful on Twitch, you kind of need to be live as much as humanly possible that you can be. And so they're asking people to dedicate a huge amount of their lives to this platform. And other platforms are yes, you can also dedicate a lot of time to this, but also you could literally fucking dance in front of a camera for 30 seconds and post it on the internet and get more exposure and be actively pushed towards more people than we on Twitch can ever do for you if you streamed for 40 hours straight. And so that is such a depressing thing to have to sort of start reconciling and thinking about. So
it's also no secret that TikTok are moving into this market, right? Like
100%.
TikTok are definitely like they're already making moves. They're already gearing up for it to be a thing that is like their next like big cornerstone that they're going to be tackling. And I think, yeah, if anyone's going to have the capability to joust Twitch off that pedestal, I think it'll be TikTok. So, the thing for me is just seeing the types of content. Like you talked about the dancing video, but also the way that content on TikTok presents and goes out is fundamentally different from the way that you see it on Twitch, and it's very different complementary styles. And I worry about a world where TikTok, love TikTok, big fan, or in conjunction with a bunch of other types of content, in a world where all I'm consuming is a series of videos, my brain is gonna melt.
Yeah, totally. But also that's what everyone they want your brain to melt.
Please don't melt my brain.
Yeah, that's the fucking secret for all these tech companies. They want you to slowly die and just give in. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Twitch. I feel like Twitch has not had a good 12 months. And this seems like, if not the nail in the coffin, it's a nail in the box where the coffin parts are being shipped. So it's like they've put coffin bits in a box and they put a nail in that box. Yeah,
nails,
and that box is really just a coffin for a coffin. So they're shipping that coffin, and then we'll see what happens when we open up that box with the coffin bits, and then we'll be like, okay, do we want to start putting nails in this coffin? And then at the end, we're going to put this live streaming service in
on a loose ship.
On a loose ship. We're going to put in all the metaphors, that we're just going to bury them. Okay, good. The last thing we want to touch on just before we move on from the news is that Night School Studio came out and said that Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals has been delayed. Peter Burns. One of your picks for the fantasy draft, the Pocket Fantasy League, has been delayed into 2022. Seeing your fan art, reading your excited comments, and connecting with you fuels our ambition to make this our best game yet. To make Oxenfree 2 truly special and add more localizations, we're moving our release window to 2023. It's a little bit longer for Oxenfree 2. But no longer to hear more about Solium Infernum. Did I say that right?
You did good. Good job.
Good. I don't know why, but I look at the two words and I panic inside. I'm like, fuck, I'm definitely going to screw this up.
It's Latin. You're done. See you later. Too hard.
Kelsey, I fucking barely make it through English.